Well, thanks again so much for joining us today here on our Wednesday webinar series. This has been really, really fun. I'm going to give just the first few minutes here. I'm just going to take a few minutes to run through some of the latest news, latest happenings that are around. There are quite a few really awesome announcements today. So, and you'll want to watch your email because we will even have some more announcements coming in email later on this week and into next week. So lots of great stuff going on. So let me get started here. Today's webinar, of course, is on summer camp. So we'll get into that in just a moment. Some of the news and things happening around the CPC, just so you all know, is that we do have our spring fundraiser is rolling. It is called Snack Attack. That's our new theme. Just having some fun here with a little character. We call him Feed the Beast. We're going to have some fun there. So you can check that out, cpcbsa.org/candy there. And give me one moment here because we're going to go next to Mind Camp. If you haven't heard about this is super fun. Todd McDonald, my cohort here, he's been really rocking on this and his team. And we just have a wonderful team who's put together, literally, it is Minecraft, but in a CPC experience at our camps. So this is super fun. Check it out at cpcbsa.org/mindcamp. It is literally Minecraft. It's all, you have to do it on your PC, but it is just great. It's some fantastic camp-like experiences in Minecraft, and we call it Mind Camp. So check it out at cpcbsa.org/mindcamp. All right. As many of you know, Camp for All is also going on. We have some really, for those of you unit leaders and parents out there, volunteers who are helping out with Camp for All to help us get all these scouts to camp and give them a world-class experience. We have tons of new resources for the Camp for All fundraiser. So check it out at cpcbsa.org/start Camp for All. That is, there's just literally, we have a step-by-step guide on how to do this fundraiser. So check that out. It's really, really great. Literally copy paste messages and images and things like that you can share with family and friends to help us all get all these scouts to camp and give them an unparalleled experience. So check that out. Couple other things. January 30th, we have the Order the Arrow members. We have NACS going on. January 31st, we have a short-term camp administrator national camping school course. And that's going to be really, really great for those of you who are interested in hosting district events and larger events, things like that. February 21st is the Female Eagle Scout Celebration. So it's called Be the Change. This is from National. We, of course, also will be sharing stories of our female Eagles who have earned the awesome rank and over this next month. So this is going to be really, really fun, and we'll get to see all the female Eagle Scouts who have earned that badge over the last 2 years, and have been really, as all of you Eagle Scouts who have been working on Eagle Scout this time, it's been a challenge. So congratulations to every single one of you, and join us for the Be the Change event. It's going to be really great. Also, you can register for powderhorn training. All of this is at cpcbsa.org/calendar. You can also find it on our Facebook page as well. So check that out. This is also a big announcement. So watch your email for those of you who are in the CPC, because we're going to have some really great announcements about reopening camping activities and unit activities, in-person unit activities. We have this amazing, fantastic team who has been working really, really hard on this. The rules, of course, have been changing. It seems almost daily from the state. So lots of great news, especially in Oregon. It changes a little bit from Washington, but basically watch your email, because we are likely going to be able to open the CPC properties for family and likely cohort camping starting on March 1st, basically March through June. So we can answer some more of your questions at the end of the webinar here as well. We also have some really fantastic, I'm super excited about this as a totally biased Scoutmaster of Troop 107 in Northeast Portland, and wanting to get these kids outside and together and whatnot. We just have some really a task force who has created some amazing guidance on how to do this safely. So really excited about this. Watch your email for that. We're going to have a lot more information on this. We will likely also do this on the next Wednesday webinar. We'll have all the details and more Q&A for that as well. So check that out. Alrighty. Lastly here for the news and events information here. For those of you teenagers or no teenagers out there, by golly, join summer camp staff. It may be the only game in town for teenagers. So check this out at cpcbsa.org/camp staff, and we have all the information there about joining camp staff. It's going to be really great. And again, check out cpcbsa.org/calendar, or go to our Facebook page and go to the events part for all the events. And also, just lastly, this is being recorded as we speak. We're also putting all of these webinars are recorded, and you can actually download a video and audio version of it, as well as have all of the presentations and everything else for any of these webinars at cpcbsa.org/webinars. Trying to really create a nice resource for all unit leaders and volunteers and those interested in all of these webinars. So anyway, now I'm going to hand the ball off to my cohorts here, Todd and Chris. They are going to give us the lowdown of everything you ever wanted to know as of this point, as of this moment, for summer camp this summer. All right, Todd, Chris, you guys take it away, and I will just say ding or next, and I'll help you with the presentation here.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to join us. I'm Chris Harold. I'm our resident camping director. And I'm excited to bring you updates, and I'm excited to try and we've called it tethering expectations, because we want you to have all the information we have so that you can pass it along and communicate well with your youth and with your parents and other leaders. And so you can prepare. Being prepared is kind of like a hallmark or a catchphrase, or it's been said before in scouting. And so we want to help you with that as best we can. We're grateful to have you here. And Todd, do you care to introduce yourself before we jump in?
Yeah, I'm Todd McDonald. I've been camping and scouting in this council since the 70s, and excited to be here with you all and to share some of these things. Today, we really hope to ensure that we all have something we can tether off to and better able to plan for the next year. And what we don't expect all of our volunteers to do is to pay attention to the inner workings of our local government, the CDC, the American Camping Association, and National Boy Scouts of America stuff, in addition to interacting with our own COVID task force full of physicians, safety of professionals, scouters just like you, camping professionals and the like, to best navigate through this. So we're going to share some ideas on how to get through here. And what I would like you to consider as we move through all this is that we sent out a survey to our in-council people, and I think there's a lot of misunderstanding as to what the plan is for this summer and how to take hold. And we're going to go into that, and we're also going to address all these concerns that people have shared with us through that survey about planning for this next year, and also feedback that they've come to us. Chris and I had decided to wait until we shared our story before we went into those answers. So please hold off your what ifs and your judgment until we've got through most of this, and we will do our level best. Chris and I have nowhere to go. We just sit around answering questions all day long. So when this is over, we want to make sure that we can answer all of your questions. If you don't feel that they're answered, you'll be able to contact us directly. Chris is going to go into this, and you're going to hear this more time, but we do not look at our camp as an all-inclusive resort. We are more like a barefoot cruise. And that means that all of us will need to, hoist the sail and be part of the inner workings to make camp work. Our end product is not our experience, it's the impact that we have on our kids. And we can't wait for someone to do it for us. It's something that we have to do together. And in that spirit, we'd like to move on, sharing what we would like to do with you together to move through this process to ensure our kids get a great experience. So Chris, go ahead and take it away.
Great. Ding. There you go. Today we're going to cover hopefully what's on your mind. The be prepared, it's more than a motto. We want to make sure that you have an understanding of a little bit of, not too much of how the sausage is made, but some of how the sausage is made, to be able to have faith that we are consulting with the right people to come to conclusions that keep kids safe and healthy, and also and adults and our staff, and still retain a fun, worthwhile experience for everyone, for all of us. We could all use that about now. Second, we'll be reviewing the working assumptions, those things that we're our best guess, educated guess of where we'll land this summer. In a changing environment, we have to monitor lots of places to figure out where should we plant our flag for now to understand what's going to come, what we'll most likely see this summer. We want to make sure we answer the concerns that were revealed in the many emails we've received and the survey that Todd referenced. There have been many concerns shared there. We want to make sure there's some clarification on those things. We'll help you prepare with some specific point-by-point guidance and links and websites and all that kind of stuff. And finally, what you should expect going forward. Well, I guess not finally, because then you'll still have questions, of course, and we want to make sure we stick around to answer those. So, ding. So we're preparing for camp this summer in a whole lot of ways. First of all, I want to share with that on the left side of the screen there, this looks familiar if you were in the last month's webinar, but some of these things are crucial to understand about where are we getting our information? Are we making it up, or are we coming at it from a position of knowledge and understanding? We've got regular communication with Oregon rule makers. In that, the governor, the executive branch in Oregon is making the guidelines and rules through typically the Oregon Health Authority of how we can go about life in these times. Our seat at the table consists of communication through some of our professional organizations, as well as some direct communication to make sure that those making the decisions understand our situation, our needs, and that we know our stuff. So those are all parts of the puzzle right there. The ACA, American Camp Association, has come up with a whole field guide that point by point walks through how you run summer camp safely in these times. A whole bunch of places did that last summer. It didn't look the same, but they were able to do it safely through using some mitigation measures. That guide is available really to anyone who wants to see it, but it takes you through what the dining hall would look like, what the aquatics area, and so much more. Our national BSA is providing us regular webinars with updates, guidance, and expertise of how to handle the situations we have run into and expect to run into. They've been very good about that, frankly. Our CPC has a COVID panel made up of volunteers, board members, professionals in the field, and parents, and unit leaders as well. There's about 10, Todd, is that about right? 10 people or so on that COVID task force who weigh in regularly with us on where we're at, what comes next, how should we proceed. They're health and safety experts, pediatricians, people from lots of walks of life that all love scouting, every one of them. So they guide us as well. I mentioned the BSA and non-BSA camps. We're also in communication with those folks. And also there's a lot of online materials of what's worked and what's not worked. Not to belabor it, but it's important to know that there's a lot of information for us to digest to help us move forward. And then finally, Oregon just came out on the 19th, January 19th, with new guidelines for education. And buried deep in that was some guidelines for outdoor school and how outdoor schools could operate. And that gives us some insight into where the state might go when it comes to organizational camps. So we're going to school on all these bits of guidance as they come out and trying to influence them in a way that helps those who are decision makers see that we have the expertise to run camp safely. At the same time, we're on the other side of the screen. We have some really well-seasoned camp managers and staff who were able to test out some of these practices last summer in our family camping and cohort camping opportunities. So scale is the big difference from last summer to this summer. And then we've had opportunity to train and study the mitigation measures, and also to get up to speed on what those exactly are. So that's some of the things we're doing in the background to make sure we're ready for you to show up at camp. Back to you, Todd.
All right. One of our members, we have several positions involved in our program, but one is a pediatrician and scoutmaster, shared with us in the COVID task force about how much need there is for getting outside right now for the social interaction and the like. She mentioned that she has had to treat more youth for depression related illness and prescribe antidepressants for youth than she does in a couple months than she does normally in an entire year. So what we're dealing now is taking a toll, and we want to make sure that we have the ability to enrich their lives and give people a sense of belonging and activity and again thrive. And our program does that, but requires us to get outside. It requires us to be able to interact, and it requires us to experience different challenges and adversity so that we can make good decisions and learn how to make good decisions. And camp is the best place to do that. Plus, I think everybody would just love to get out of the house. So, in that, more importantly, I don't think there's anybody here that doesn't see the importance and need for their scouts to break this cycle and get outside. Next. All right, we're going to submit to you our working assumptions. The working assumption is literally a tether to hold us and to provide some sort of footing for us to plan. By no means is our working assumption, right, what we're going to do. Our working assumption is a picture based on what we believe now, based on what we're hearing and what's happening in the industry and discussing what we're having and the results and trends and gut feelings as to what it could look like and how we can plan. So by no means should anybody hear the working assumptions to say, oh, well, this is what we're doing, and you said that we're going to do this and we're going to do that. I'm telling you now that we still need to have some sort of directionality from our state government to fully operate. We don't have that now, but we anticipate that we will, and that we will be able to do these things. If anybody would like to go over how we got from A to Z on this, we're happy to discuss that with you offline, but just trust that that us and the COVID task force and our ACA and CC, our professional organizations and camps have gone through this and feel comfortable that this is a picture that we can start with. So again, one, we know that we want to do camp. Everybody tells us that we want to do camp. We have over 4,500 people signed up for camp. My guess is that camp is important. I think it's reasonable that we can provide camp at some but minimal risk. That'll be worthwhile, and that we can do it within the guidelines. We will still have a risk of this virus, but we can limit the risk, and the price of exposure will be lessened by then. What that means is that since so many of the most fragile people in our communities will have been vaccinated, and with the mitigation steps that we will have a better handle in being able to interact and reduce our fear or have a more risk-taking attitude towards how we move as opposed to where we're at now. And finally, our program experiences will need to be different. And I want, if I can just look at you guys all in the eyeballs, and just, if I can say one thing to expect for the summer, this camp will be different. Any camp you go to will be different. It will not be the same. But the great thing is that there will be camp, and it will be valuable, and it will be impactful, and it will be fun, and we will get outside, and we'll be excited to be there. But will your kids be able to earn 9 merit badges? We'll talk about that. Probably not. Will we have the same flexibility and programming that you had before? Probably not. Will we have to be encumbered by guidelines and risk mitigation steps to ensure that we can be out there? You bet we will. But that doesn't mean we should stop. We should give up. We need to be prepared for the difference and embrace it. So that's all. I mean, that's the important thing. And with that, we'll go ahead and get started. So Chris, why don't you start? Go ahead and share a little bit about what we're doing. Chris, you're muted.
Yes, I am. So if we're right about these working assumptions, what we're outlining below for the remainder of the session is about where we think camp will look like this summer. And if we're wrong, we'll get to that at the end for sure, because we want to be right. We're doing our best to be right, but it's an imperfect plan for sure. So jumping right into this, the first thing is about pre-screening and testing. You should expect before coming to camp this summer to do for all our members to do some pre-camp self-quarantining. That's not the same as isolation. That's essentially what we're doing now. You're at home, you're having extremely limited contact with outside people. You should expect to be doing that for 7 to 10 days ahead of camp. Also health checks. Prior to camp, each leader is going to be needing to check with their members to make sure that they've not had symptoms in that 7 to 10 day window ahead of camp. And then also, asking those questions and following up with the youth and other leaders who are coming will be the initial screening process. You haven't had a temperature, you don't have any of those COVID symptoms that we've all gotten so familiar with now. Testing before camp. I'm putting that out there as a possibility, maybe even a probability, with this caveat. We understand that the price and availability of testing is going to change radically between now and the time camp starts. It's 150 days and I think 12 hours, something like that, before camp starts, but who's counting? And having a test, a negative COVID test before camp, that again reduces our chances of introducing it to the camp environment. When you arrive at camp, there will be a re-screening. First, did we all do the pre-screening? That's important, urgent and important. And then second, the screening again on arrival. If you're coming from out of state or whatever, on your flight, did you develop symptoms when you arrived? If you're from locally, on the drive over, did you have any symptoms or anything? That last re-screening, that has, believe it or not, in some camps, caught people who are coming in to camp ill, and we don't want that. Again, there may be low-cost rapid testing available by camp. We're hearing this from people who are in the know about these sorts of things. Encouraging vaccination. We understand that vaccination is not and may not be available to those under 16 years of age. But if you are 16 or older, it may be available. So encouraging vaccination would be, if available, and to those who might be at higher risk. Our staff, one of the great things that's happened here recently is that our staff, if they're going between different groups of people over the course of the summer, they're a risk factor for us. So one of the things that happened is the American Camp Association did some work, some lobbying work to get camp staff included among essentially childcare workers so that they might be able to be vaccinated and therefore not be a way of spreading this stuff around our campers. So that's encouraging vaccination. That's not a requirement. That's an encouragement. There will be, so while camp is going on, we'll need to continue to check those symptoms daily and log that we've done that. That will likely be a unit leader responsibility. But again, it's like 5 simple questions. Have you had this, that, the other? And then check, no, no, no. And we'll likely have a thermometer at your campsite to be able to check each person as well, though that's not necessarily the thing. I've got a big black blotch in the middle of my screen. Is that on everybody or is it just me? Okay. Masking is likely to be required throughout camp in our time there. Well, I don't want to get into possibilities. You will have assigned spaces, like your restroom at your campsite will be assigned for that campsite only, and your shower space. Fortunately, we've had some major construction over this last year, brand new shower houses that are individual stalls, so your group will have assigned shower stalls. So the whole point of all this, some of these steps, is to make it, if there were to be any kind of COVID or COVID-like symptoms break out, that it's limited to your small group, whatever size that might be. Those spaces will have some extra cleaning. And then finally, once you return home, some post-camp quarantining of that again, that 7 to 10 days of limited interaction with those outside your own household, and then reporting if anything should break out, because at that point we have to now go back and contact trace and check to make sure that that didn't spread to others in our groups. Next slide, please. Where this all came from, and this is complex and tiny print, but the NPIs, the non-pharmaceutical interventions, the primary ways of stopping COVID from spreading don't involve vaccinations. They involve these main things on your screen here. And I want to share in the.
You muted, Chris.
I want to share in the chat here the link to this Camp Counts 2020 report that came out yesterday. It's actually the summary of the infographics that go with it, and so that's in the chat there. And it is a study commissioned. I keep referring to this ACA group, but they've been doing some spectacular things to our benefit. They've studied what works in camps. Basically, between survey and specific scientific research, they commissioned a environmental health firm to come up with not just the field guide, but some good ways of communicating these things, some of which has been adapted by the RCDC. So the things that get in the way of COVID are pre-screening, pre-arrival, the pre-arrival measures, the daily health screenings in camp, doing camp in cohorts, using our PPE. You see all these things: disinfecting and cleaning, hand washing, lots of hand washing, ventilation of indoor spaces or avoiding indoor spaces, altering the activities so that they don't allow aerosols and that sort of thing, right? And then testing. All these things are things that keep us, the more, they're called layers of mitigation. The more layers there are, it's more complicated, but also the less chance of any of us getting sick from that. So, so that's that. Onward, Todd, back to you.
Okay, so we will be interacting in cohorts. And so what we'll ensure that that a cohort will be the group of people who will be able to interact and work together as a unit during camp. And so again, they still will do their best to provide space and masks and the like to prevent infection. But this group, we want to make sure that in this group of cohorts, that if in a cohort, that this group, if one person gets it, our circle of concern is that group and not everybody in camp. And so we want that cohort to, for the most part, interact, in more of the higher risk activities in dining, sleeping, and hanging out and the like together. Not that there'll be no interaction with other people in a social distance way, but cohorting will be having more, if you will, social interaction than the rest of camp. Currently, the plan is a cohort size would be around 10 youth, but it could be as high as a full unit, depending on where the guidelines are at that time. So imagine, so close your eyes and see yourself in your campsite, and either each cohort, patrol, whatever you want to call that, is social distancing amongst themselves from other groups. And when they go to eat in the dining hall, that cohort is now all sitting together. And if I'm going to go participate, let's say in swimming merit badge or go check out a rowboat, my buddy is going to be from my cohort. And so all of that would be together. Now, a cohort could be as high if our mitigation standards ahead of time, the pre-things are all there, that the amount of infections are down and the state is comfortable that a cohort could be an entire campsite. But at this point, let's plan on patrol size groups that are your cohort. And the other thing too is that we will probably schedule arrival times. And so, well, and again, this is a little misleading. My guess is that you'll arrive by unit, but you'll be checked in by cohort, and we'll be asked you to travel by cohort. So, but it'll be important for you to hit an arrival window, because one of the things we don't want is 400 people all gathered at the same place at the same time. That is something that becomes a mass incident event. We don't want to create those. A cohort will sleep together. They'll eat in the same area. But again, if one person gets sick, we can isolate the person and quarantine the cohort. They will wear masks throughout camp, but will be allowed to not wear a mask when they eat. And chances are when they're inside their campsite or other cohorting activities, as long as they're socially distant. Again, when they're together, the guidelines for of what you need to do in a cohort will be different and lighter amongst the people in the cohort than they will with people outside their cohort. They'll need to be really aware of people outside of their cohort not getting into their bubble and wearing face masks and all that. But when they're together, it can be less, because it will be, right? I mean, if you're sharing a mini DAC with somebody, it's just the way it's going to be. All right, next. Our current plan for any dining hall operations, which is most camps except for Baldwin, is that we will go ahead and do split shift feeding. And every cohort, if you will, group will be assigned a table, and that will be their table for the entire time. And they will, so if you can imagine going to camp and seeing that dining hall and now seeing it half full with socially distanced groups spotted throughout the area, they leave, we sanitize the place, and the next group comes in. Chances are what will happen is that your table will be dismissed to go through, and somebody's going to hand you a plate of food. You may be able to pick up, some stuff. There'll be some stuff on your table, but for the most part, outside of sitting at the table, you'll be wearing a mask. So while you're waiting to get in, you'll have to be social distance as a cohort and the like, and then you come in and eat together. Again, what we want to do is try to prevent a mass indoor infection event, and dining halls are the place where that may be. There will be probably some in-site meals and or cooking, and especially Camp Baldwin, you'll be doing these things in your cohorts, in your patrols, when you're cooking your own food with our brand new Camp Chef cooking equipment and stainless steel equipment, and even newer shelters and things that you'll be under to eat. And still need to kind of cohort amongst that, but you won't have the dining hall concern because you'll be outside. And again, hand washing will be very, very important. All right, so we think we got food service down. This is something that's been done outside of resident camping. There are day camp groups and others that provide food services. So we've got great literature on how to do this right. All right, Chris, why don't you take on the next one?
All right. And you can see a theme running through all these slides. You can see a theme running through all these slides. Back a couple slides ago under cohorts, it was talking about space, masking, and outdoors. anytime at camp, if we've got 2 of those 3 things in place, we should be good. And so that kind of boils a lot of it down into a more simple statement, but it's important to know that all these plans that we're laying out are trying to keep that in mind of, do we have 2 of those 3 things in place or do we not? So, okay. On our program, this might be the toughest nut to crack. Because our program, if you've been to summer camp before, Cub Scout or Scouts BSA, there's an expectation. It looks like, we're going to our stations. If we're in Cub Scouts, we're going to we choose our merit badges. Off we go individually to our merit badges. And you can see where that would be challenging. But because it's different doesn't mean it won't be as cool, as fun, as awesome. And I want to make sure to highlight that point. For example, the other day I ran into a scenario that some of our fellow scouts have come up with of, what if you showed up at camp and the whole time there, or maybe a daily change, each day you had a different scenario to work through as a team, as a group with your cohort. You were on a desert island, right? And so now you've got some challenges in front of you. How do you work your way through those challenges? Now, those challenges may work towards some advancement. They may give some leadership opportunities for your older scouts that are more on point than some of the other day-to-day things usually are in camp. It still allows for so much of the fun and exploration and enjoyment of camp, but it's different, right? It's different. You're figuring out how to do a thing together, and that's important for us to all think about. Is there's so many ways. We've got such a creative and fun bunch of program people in our camp staff and in camp staff managers, that as we get closer and know what it looks like more, I think you'll be surprised by we may decide to keep some of these differences around once we don't have to worry about COVID anymore, because they're just that much fun. So for Cub Scouts, you can expect in your programs to stay in your assigned group, in your cohort, for activities and meals. We keep emphasizing wearing your masks in all activities except aquatics. And aquatics, of course, is a different thing. And if you're doing something aquatics, your buddies must be from the same cohort. For those activities, you'll know that we've got plans and the tools to clean the equipment that we use. But you can imagine if you're cleaning PFDs or climbing ropes or whatever the thing might be, that adds time, that adds some steps to the procedure. And so it might end up limiting how many users, how many people can be in the area at a time. And it may eliminate or change some of our regular activities at camp. One example of that, I'll get into that in just a second here. Some of our camps offer activities that are outside of the camp, and there's whitewater rafting or windsurfing, or there's some different outbound kind of adventures like that. Those, if we're able to offer those will be probably tied to the cohort doing that exploration, that off-camp thing. But again, we're not wanting to put our campers into the surrounding community and then reintroduce them back into camp. So there's going to be some finagling about how do we manage those pieces. It's likely that merit badge class sizes will be limited at least, and that our scouts will be able to take 4 at most. But that there will be other activities to supplant that. And that has been raised as a concern that'll come up again with our frequently asked questions. But there will be other activities to supplant merit badges. Camp is about so much more than merit badges. My gosh, they're important for sure. And they get us skills and independence and lots of things, but there's other skills as well. Lots of other scouting skills that we'll need to emphasize this summer. Some merit badges, for example, life-saving, won't be available this summer because the close quarters involved in many of the more intense life-saving merit badge requirements won't be something we can do this summer. Camp-wide activities tend to have potential for super spreader events, gathering a whole bunch of people in one small space, even if it's outdoors. It's even in masks, it just gets to be more problematic. And so it's unlikely. We've been counseled not to plan to have camp-wide activities.
Hey, Chris, I just realized here that we weren't clear that we do believe, based on the ACA field book and scouting things, that we'll be able to do the mainstays that you guys love, like swimming, boating, shooting, climbing, bike riding, depending on the camp, mountain boarding, and I mean, a bunch of that stuff. But anytime where the interaction is going to require people to spend significant time within each other's bubble are things we're going to need to avoid. And anytime that we create a mass gathering event where people can effectively social distance, we're going to need to supplant that with something else, because that is something we just don't want the plan to do.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and when we talk about program, I think the challenge here is not sounding like the no guys, no, we can't do this. No, we can't do that. But I mean, like Todd said, there are so many things that we're still able to do and provide, even if they're not done exactly the same as what we've done in prior years. So next slide, please. So the what ifs, this is a great slide, because as we mentioned at the up front, we've been talking through our working assumptions, and now we've also talked about it's not likely that it'll be exactly like we've just laid out. We know that. So understand that behind the scenes, we are preparing for options like crazy that go beyond these working assumptions. We are not just doing what we just explained and then stopping. Our camp managers and all of us are continuing to work on what if, and I appreciate the many questions that we've received that are what if this or what if that. And I guess I want to be careful to separate out a couple of things. I think what we've laid out again is where we think we'll land, but there are other possibilities, and just know that we're open to those. For example, will we have a patrol? We're preparing for what if we have a patrol-based model in the case that the patrols had to do everything all week together. We're preparing for that. We're not saying that's what we're doing, but we're preparing in case. Reducing capacity. And if we're told that you have to have half the campers at camp, we're preparing a model for that. Campsite meals. There's lots of options. There's lots of directions we can go with dining at camp. We could do takeout, basically, or we deliver them to your campsite in coolers. There's, again, so many. This is the slide of the possibles, and so I want to be cautious as I explain them, because they're not part of our current working assumptions. We're preparing for them anyway, because again, somebody said be prepared would be a good kind of slogan motto thing to work from. So we're doing that. Adult support of some of the cleaning or program aspects of camp. We're preparing for what if we need to go in that direction, because there is a lot of additional cleaning and staff may or may not be available to us in the same numbers as usual. Merit badge prereq. It's possible that we could get to a point where, because we can't do as much in camp, we do some online merit badge prerequisites, so scouts could come to camp with some of the stuff knocked out already when they arrive. And then we talked about some of the experiential models. If you're stuck on a desert island, here's your challenge. You could do escape room style things with our cohorts as well. So lots of what ifs there. And there's certainly more than those, certainly more than those, but we just wanted to give you a highlight of some of those things. All right, Todd, I'm going to bounce it back over to you for some of the frequently asked questions from our survey and from the emails that we've been receiving and calls. Oh, Todd, you're muted.
So when we start kicking around the fact that we are prepared and we spin on 100,000 different models on how we could do things, it's really just to share that there is a lot of innovation and creativity in the works as we try to have plans and backup plans upon our backup plans. But we hesitate to share them like we did in the, like I said in the thing is, how would you feel about us having less adults come to camp in a survey? And some people said, absolutely, we wouldn't come if we couldn't bring everybody. And some people said, you know, we'll do what needs to be done. And the point of that question was that, okay, some units will bring 30 kids and 16 adults. And is that, do they really need that many adults, or is it, you know, kind of, you know, that? And so that would be the question, and maybe more of a rhetoric question. So let me go ahead and just reach through this as well. We'll hit some of these. What about the refund? All right, so the plan for refunds are as follows, and that is, at the time that camp is canceled by us and or the state or whatever, which we don't expect will happen because we feel comfortable that camp will operate. But let's say that it does happen for some reason, and then we will give you an opportunity to get a refund or roll over to next year's camp. Now, in the past, we provide a full refund and for that, and moved the full amount over to the next year. So that's what we would do again. So this is not something we'd make up. It's something we do. Now, you need to know, and this coming, is that for all of you in Scout BSA, so if you're a Cub Scout leader trying to bring Cub Scout kids to camp, put your finger in your ears and don't listen to this next part. Because March 1st is a deadline where you need to tell us what your, how many people you're having to come to camp. So let's say that right now you have 20 people, but you've only gotten money and firm commitments out of 15. Well, as of March 1st, you will owe $100, not $10, for each scout that is signed up after March 1st. So you'll go from, again, 20, so $200 in there, to a debt now of $2,000. So it's in your best interest at that point, and that is non-refundable. All right, so you need to, by the 1st, you know, adjust your numbers to reflect what you believe will come. And yes, it is possible. You reduce your numbers and then camp fills and you can't add any more, or the state reduces our capacity or whatever. I get it. However, it's important for us to be able to operate to get a better idea as to how many people are coming, because it definitely cost us and the like. And then the next main deadline is 2 weeks prior to camp. This is for everybody. 2 weeks prior to camp, anybody who has not paid, there's no refunds for the full, for everybody who signed up at that time. So now you no longer own $100, you owe $400 a scout or whatever the full amount is. Now, the exception for that is we have a refund policy that allows you to, that allows you to tell us that somebody has, you know, let's say got sick or injured, major family, you know, life event that has caused them to have to miss camp, and then you can apply for that, and then we evaluate those on a piece-by-piece basis and apply refunds. Now, Cub Scout leaders, you do have that one, the 2-week rule, but go ahead. Your deadline for the $100 for Cub Scouts is May 1st, which we'll probably cover a little bit later, but Cub Scout deadline for that would be May 1st. Again, I think the biggest issues in the FAQs and things is the why of that. And what happens is that we're holding all these spots, and especially with we believe that there's going to be a significant drop in number of participants in our camp March 1st, because There's been, again, a loss of membership in scouting, that there's been, some of you have just rolled over your registrations. And we also have units who have rolled over their registrations that no longer exist. And so we're going to need to get a firm grip as to how to plan because for the summer and how best to make that work. And also, we might be able to let more people in because, you know, we eke out some space. Will you have to reduce adults? I kind of stated this already. At this point, we're not telling leaders that you need to, you know, to reduce the number of adults, but we ask you to consider what if the state says that we have to reduce our capacity in camp to 75%. All right, so now, so we have to go ahead and, you know, either tell people they can't come or ask people to bring less adults so we can bring more kids. What would you prefer us to do? And so that's what we're asking for you to consider. How many adults do you need to bring to work to be at camp? Do you need, you know, one adult for every 2 kids that you're bringing? Do you need, or could you do it with, you know, 2 adults per patrol or whatever it might be? So just to consider that. So no, is that a requirement? It is not a requirement today. It's not part of our working assumption. How will our older scouts be engaged? Well, that is always a challenge. And I think it's a challenge that you're running in today and things like that. I want you to know that we would like to hire them for a week or 2 weeks or for the entire summer. That'd be the best way to engage them. Let me say that again. We'd like to hire them for 1 week, 2 weeks, or the entire summer. That would be the best way to engage them. It's a great leadership and experience and all those things. We could even hire them during the week that they're there. That'd be okay too. So they can serve on camp staff during your week that you're there. Now, other things. Well, I mean, currently our working assumption states that we're still able to do a lot of these things like climbing and shooting and all of our programs. So there's nothing new there. It's just whether we may need to get creative on experiential stuff. And Chris kind of alluded to it, but I tried to paint this picture to someone. What if, you know, you have this older scout patrol, in addition to the merit badge things, is that they sign up for the Treasure Island adventure. All right, so they show up and they are now stranded on a desert island thematically. And they need to, they experience challenge throughout the entire week that they need to overcome as a group to be able to survive the island. And so we may be able to have some innovative program. I've challenged the group to come up with those types of activities. So that's the best I can tell you right now. Again, working with our older scouts is always a challenge, especially if we're going to have a reduction on some of our real high adventure things that we can do. Testing and vaccinations, as we told before, are things that we believe are going to be readily available, and then we can highly recommend it for people. In fact, there is a rumor, little ACA CDC rumor, that we'll be able to have you know, tests that will come out, rapid tests that we can get for like $5-10 a piece, and we can buy en masse. So you just might show up and, you know, spit on a stick and be good, you know, or whatever. So and so we don't know. However, you could do everybody a favor, and that is, if you can get vaccinated, to get vaccinated. Again, I'm not trying to make a political statement. I'm just talking about how I can best, you know, sell to our county and state health people. That if you can arrange for a testing before you arrive at camp, please do so. If it's too expensive or it's just unwieldy to do, then don't do it, and we'll work with you. If you've ever been to our camps before, you know that, you know, we do our level best to help you be successful here, and we will continue to do that through this process. All right, let's go to the next slide. I think I have the next slide. All right, we sent this out in an email, and I hope you all got this email. You'll have my email at the end of this, so feel free to email me if you did not get the email that had this best practices in it, because I want to make sure everybody got those. And so here are the things that you can do to help be prepared. One is to make sure current unit leaders are listed on your troop reservation, so that you have to go into Tentaroo, where you pay and all that, and go into your profile and make sure that the 2 leaders there are the correct leaders. And then you can add more people to our communication list by going to this camp contact form, which is now in the chat that Chris just put in there. So send that out to other people, or you can fill it out, and just, you need to know who you are, you know, your contact information, and when you're coming to camp, and we'll include you on the communication that we have for those activities. Again, we talked about to confirm your attendance numbers by March 1st or May 1st if you're a Cub Scout leader, Cub Scout camp, and collect. Again, I think the key thing, if you haven't done so already, arrange to collect that $100 per person now. Don't wait. You know, put that in the bank, be ready to do that, and be able to hit this, and let people find out where they need to be. Have a meeting with your PAC and parents. You know, you can share with them these webinars. They can feel free to participate in them to help guidelines that we set out, and the like. Attend. Our plan is to communicate to you twice a month, one via email and one by this webinar. So the email will kind of invite you to come to the webinar and share information, and then the webinar will be able to share the word on the street as that. And that webinar will be the last Wednesday of every month between now and camp. We'll let you know when they end, but so it's the last Wednesday at noon, and then we will post this webinar online for you to watch if you miss it. So you'll be able to send a link off to your families that may want to participate in this, or have it as a review for your own communication. If you're in the Cascade Pacific Council, you can go ahead and start doing scholarships, camp scholarship information to us, and you can, I believe that is also in the chat, the link to do that. We have a significant amount of scholarship funds available for our in-council people. Again, summer camp staff, we need to do all of that. And finally, like I said before, I'm not telling you all have to get vaccinations. I doubt we will require that. I can't imagine the state would say that. And we're not going to do it unless the state does. But let me be clear that we might provide incentives for those people who are vaccinated versus people who are not. And so it's in your best interest to have, you know, as many people vaccinated as you can. And it's our goal to vaccinate all of our camp staff that we can. So just to let you know. If you're from out of state, and thank you so much for coming and with us. We really care about you and understand the difficulties that it takes for you to come and be with us. And so make sure you're paying attention to your travel restrictions, airlines, and that type of thing. I know that they've got some good plans out there, so but pay attention, speak with them regularly. And this, due to COVID and the changes, some units have been able just to take benefit of arriving the day early because it's just fun to do. For this year, we are limiting it to 250 miles away from camp. So if you are within the 250-mile bubble of our camps, then we're going to ask for you to arrive. And since you're going to have different arrival times, we're happy to assign a later arrival time. But those of you that are outside of that, you know, basically 4 or more hours of travel to get to us, then we will allow you to arrive the night before and try to do all your screenings and things on that night. All right, Chris, next to you.
Great. So we just want to encourage you to keep up to date on everything as possible. Todd mentioned that every month we intend to do a mid-month email to all our leaders who are registered for camp for summer. And if you're not currently on that list, make sure you add yourself to that list. That link is in the chat. And then second, at the end of the month, like this, we'll have our monthly webinar to make sure you are up to speed on whatever new twists and turns come down that road. And as the picture becomes more and more clear as we get down that road, we're confident that it will get more clear. So you can communicate to your scouts and other leaders and parents with more confidence as well. So there's that. We've got the dates right there for those. At the very end in June, we've got a camp directors pre-camp meeting scheduled. I suspect that will be virtual, and it will for sure be available online, because we know we have people traveling from lots of places. And that's where kind of the rubber hits the road of, here's for sure programs like this, get all those questions, here's the procedures, all that stuff will be dialed in. And that your camp director, you'll get to meet them and some of their key staff. And that's the fun part. That's when we get to the fun part of, can you believe all these cool things we're going to be able to do? So, and then finally, the couple slides from now, you will see a list of contacts at our office and also camp directors to get questions answered. One note of caution when we get to that slide on the camp directors, they do check their emails regularly. That said, up until camp starts, they're volunteers and they're working right now on buying supplies and hiring a staff and trying to figure out what are these alternative programs that we can do. So, but if you have a question about registration or reducing your numbers who are coming to camp or increasing them or any of that, go to the office. You want to go to the office for that. So any of those contacts at the office can help with that. So that's that. Next slide, please. And then we're going to get to the questions right after this. But for today, just know we do have confidence that we'll be able to get our camps going and operating this summer in a meaningful, helpful, impactful way for our scouts. And we really feel like they and we all need that. They will look different. It's still going to be awesome. I mean, let's say you're going to Camp Merriweather or Camp Baldwin or any of our camps. How can you go to the woods or the ocean or the mountains for a week and not have a fun time? That's maybe the bigger question. So there's that. We will definitely continue to have mitigation measures and refine those as new information comes out about them, of what's needed, not needed, effective, not effective. We'll keep sharing our working assumptions so you can plan. And we're going to keep communicating. And finally, we really want to make sure that whatever questions you have, that they get answered as quickly or as accurately as they can, and that knowing what we know and working on this stuff together with you will build a stronger partnership that will benefit our scouts moving forward, not just for this summer, but going forward, well beyond this summer. So thanks for all that. And Todd, I guess we can work together on the last slide for questions and such.
Yeah, Chris, is that open to chat to everyone out there, or is it just to chats to us?
It's just chats to me right now. So
okay,
I'll go through it here. So yeah, feel free to add your questions here.
So
I haven't covered anything, and
I'm sorry, Chris. There have been a couple that came to me directly. I'll go ahead and run through those real quick, just to share in case other people have them, and you can cross them off your list.
Perfect.
Is it possible that different units may share a campsite? Yes. Would we possibly create a camp cohort? That is possible and part of our working assumption, but we would prefer to try to keep your unit. If you came together, let's say with, 5 scouts and 2 adults, we'd probably just make you a cohort the best we can. The other question is, can we have smaller groups that do a campfire, flag, and all that? I would anticipate that if a campsite or 1 or 2 camp units wanted to get together at a campfire bowl at the beach or something and socially distance, that can be done without creating a mass infection event. And so we haven't drilled all the way down on those guidelines, but I think the spirit is not create social distancing and not creating a mass infection event. So so we just would need to work that out. So, and I'm sure that working with our units, we could come up with ways of making that happen. Oh, by the way, you probably will be required to do flag in your campsite. Just saying. There's a concern that the 3/1 deadline. I just realized that's something different. Somebody put it down there. I thought they were talking about unit leadership. The March 1st deadline is critical to our operation, especially this year. And I know it's a burden on you. We try not to do things that make your life harder, but this is one that we have to do so that we can best make happen for the most and effective for the amount of people. So the question says, okay, well, what about Weeblos crossing over? I mean, we're not going to know. And I said, well, you got to find out, or leave them off the list, right? This is a guideline that's going to be there with or without, that information. So you as a unit will have to make a decision, because it's $100 mistake if you're wrong. And so please make good decisions based on that. And if you need to communicate to us about to help you with that, please do so. But the other question is, are adults part of the March 1st commitment? No, adults are not. You do not have required to pay anything down on adult participation in camp. And let's see. And again, the 3/1 is for Scout BSA units and 5/1 for May 1st for the other ones. All right, go ahead, Chris. That was the ones that came to me.
Okay, great. Here's a question. Are BSA girls and BSA boy troops meet at the same location? Will they be allowed to camp within the same site?
You want me to take this one, Chris?
Sure.
When it comes to campsite assignments, there is no yes or no. It's a community-based decision model where we discuss the scenario. We had situations where that makes sense and some situations where it doesn't make sense. We have units that enjoy having the girls in a patrol site in their campsite and some that don't. And so if that is something that you're interested in, we will work with you and our community to make the best decisions for the entire camp. Because remember, we don't just show up and it's your unit. It is a whole host of other people working together to make an experience happen. So I wish I could tell you exactly what we would say there, but the truth is that we will have to work with everybody the best we can to ensure that camp works. And that is not that we would allow a girl unit to stay in a boy unit site, if you will, if that worked with the community, if that worked with everybody there and everybody felt comfortable with the mitigation that would need to happen to make that safe.
All right, here's one. If we have kids who drop out after the 3/1 date, can we roll over their deposit and apply them to other Scout fees?
So the answer to that one, sorry, Chris, I'm just on a roll, I guess. If you have 10 people sign up for camp and 2 of them drop out and you fill it with 2 Weeblos and now you still have 10 people coming, we don't know the difference. But if you arrive with 8 Scouts who pay in full, we'll still expect the $200 for the 2 that didn't show after March 1st.
And in that regard, here's one. Policy on council website says no transfers of reservations this year. Is that accurate?
That is not accurate. And I don't know where that is. And Chris, let's find it. I've already, people have come to me and say, hey, can we move it to next year? Yes. People have contacted us and said, hey, can we get a refund? And I said, yes. We want to know. Tell us. All right, we're here for you. The best thing you can do is communicate to us. We're also going to start a phone call communication plan for people we haven't heard from the next month or so. So it is critical to us that we establish a clear, concise way of communicating. And I know that there's 400 of you and like 5 of us on my team dealing with this, but we stand ready to be there for you. So communicating to us early and often is always the best practice.
All right. Someone else is just wondering about additional details on new activities that will be replacing ones that we may not be able to do, and wondering about cost differences, if there will be possibly less cost if there's less programming.
Chris, I'm just keep going. You just jump in if you add. I get this question quite a bit about, okay, how long you're not gonna be able to provide everything, so we really ought to reduce the cost. And I want to share a fact with you all that we did not change our fee structure policy based on our 5-year plan because of COVID. And I guarantee you it's going to cost us a lot more to run camp than it did whether we offer shooting or not. And so we will not be adjusting, refunds of partial program and all that if we can offer an experience. And I know that it might be hard for some people, but you have to understand that in amongst everything that we're doing, I mean, if we have to significantly, let's say that one of the things is that reducing capacity, which is compared back to 75% of what we normally do. Chances are we're not hiring less staff, right? It still takes the same amount of people to run a waterfront and a rifle range and all of that. Plus, we're probably not going to charge those people for testing and the extra sanitation stuff. Last summer, just for our people camping, it cost us $20,000 in added costs that we weren't planning for sanitation equipment. So I guess that I just want to kind of throw that out there. And so what are we going to do? I don't have the answer for that other than this. I've been involved in scouting for a long time, and a lot of people that I've run into have gotten their idea as to what camp should be and have lost the possibilities of what it could be. I work with an amazing group of people who know what camp could be. And I don't know that we can make camp the same or the same value for what it would be outside of COVID, but we can make it valuable. And that is my commitment to all of you.
All right, here's one from Facebook, actually. So for us, our bear den and tiger den signed up to go together because of siblings. So we're looking at like 15 kids. And then, of course, parents. Would we all be together or would we be split up?
The working assumption would probably have you together, unless we would split you in half. So I would be prepared for both of those. I'm leaning that we would, and we've done this before, is that we may have smaller groups just because it's just make it easier to manage parents, but manage the kids. But the current working assumption would say that size group, for instance, would fit within a camp den.
That makes sense. All right. If anyone else has questions, feel free to toss them into the chat. And otherwise, we've just gotten some nice kudos from people. Always good to hear, because I know your team has, I mean, I've just been blown away. I'm the newbie here, right? I've only been doing this gig for less than a year and a half. And I tell you folks, this team and all the volunteers who have helped out figure out these details and all the assumptions and contingency plans. I mean, I have been blown away. It is so impressive. At one point, I think you guys had 6 or 8 different contingencies lined up at what if scenarios. And so I tell you, it's really nice. So thanks to all of you for adding some kudos here, because the team they have been working really, really hard and getting everybody out there to get out there camping, whether it's families or cohorts. And so there will be lots more news coming down the pipe here within the next days. We are finalizing some things, and it's going to be really exciting, some really amazing guidance. And I'm super excited for all of you to meet the people who have helped us out, as Todd mentioned and Chris have mentioned, the COVID task force. I mean, these people have been just they're so scouty. They're so into getting these kids outdoors. And as a dad of teenagers, I know that the toll it's taken on them and I mean, all of you, right, who are working with scouts, and I've seen it with our scouts too, is that getting these kids back outside and doing scouty stuff is just what we're all excited about and all for. So this is going to be great. Let's see, we have folks from out of state who have said thanks so much too. Really good information, and so yeah, this is really, really great. Do we know if troops/cohorts will be sharing campsites? I believe you guys really answered that one. If troops or cohorts would actually be sharing sites. You want to end with one last comment about that?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it is possible. Our campsites are many different sizes, so that is a possibility. And we would, I mean, there's variables in all that, but it is a possibility. Ordinarily, under normal conditions, our troops do share campsites on a really, really regular basis. That would happen if we could ensure that all those other measures were still going to be in place. One, maybe, what's the right word for it? Tricky piece of that would be the restrooms in the campsites. The flushing outhouses, because those are flushing now. Did we mention flushing outhouses this webinar?
We did not promote that. And the shower houses.
And the shower, I know, big step ups in creature comforts there. But they have two sides, the flushing outhouses do. And so you would assign one group to one side, one group to the other, and that would be one area of separating out. And then the eating areas, if there were eating in the campsites, there would be separate dining shelters for sure. And we've already made the purchases there to provide those, to make sure that everybody would have their own spaces that way. So if we were doing that where a troop was sharing a campsite, we would make those arrangements. At least. Let's see. Oh, I know what I was going to say before we go too. I want to make sure I take a second just to thank all of you who have attended this webinar and are doing the planning and the hard work of trying to navigate. We are not quite exactly sure what it's going to look like kind of season, because without you, camp would not happen. It just wouldn't. And these kids wouldn't get the opportunity to go and do it safely and still have fun. It's that partnership is everything we do is contingent upon it. So thank you for being here. Thank you for doing what you do.
Hear, hear. Todd, any other closing comments, thoughts that have come to mind?
Yeah, I want to parrot, Chris's things. So thank you for all of you. And I cannot say that how important it is for you to understand me as the director of program for our council, and been around camp for nearly my entire life, that this firm belief that though we have paid camp staff and we have camping professionals that will be involved in organizing, planning, and administering of camp, that summer camp happens, and the gift of scouting and the miracle of scouting is when people give their time and their love and to help make sure that kids prosper. And we want to do that together. We don't want to be that thing you go to. We want to be the thing that you partake in. And that is our plan and directionality as we move forward. Thank you all so much for all you do. And don't hesitate to reach out to us, because we stand ever ready to be there for you.
Excellent. Yes. Thank you, everybody, for joining in. Make sure you tune in next week as well. We'll have more details on that here, posted on Facebook and sent via email as well, about reopening and what that all looks like and guidance for that. So that'll be really, really exciting. This has all been in flux, so that's why you haven't seen anything on it yet, but we will be sending out lots of information over the next couple of days. So thanks so much for joining us, and we really appreciate it. We will have all of this posted on our blog within the next 24 hours at cpcbsa.org/webinars, and you'll see it on the homepage too. So you'll have an audio recording, the video recording of this, you'll have the presentation of this as well, and any other pertinent links will be available to you there too. So thanks so much for joining us, everybody. We really appreciate it. Have yourself a wonderful rest of your week and weekend. Thanks so much.